Okay, I'm going to nerd out for a minute, so just bear with me. I know you guys have heard about the $130 million donation that the Pentagon got to pay the troops because the government shut down and I still don't have a job.
As potential payment lapses for essential workers like active duty military members raise concerns, the Pentagon confirmed Friday that it accepted an anonymous gift of $130 million for their pay. The move raises legal questions after President Trump said he received an offer to cover U.S. service members' pay.
A friend of mine, a man that's great, I'm not going to use his name unless he lets me do it.
First of all, that $130 million donation is potentially illegal in this sense. They gave it to the Pentagon or they gave it to the Department of Defense. What's supposed to happen is the Department of Defense gives that money to the Treasury. Then Congress appropriates or makes a law to give it to the troops. Because per the Constitution, the power of the purse or the power to appropriate funds is invested in the House of Representatives and nowhere else. Per the Constitution, MAGA. If that does not happen, and it can't since the government is shut down, then they are doing all of this illegally. But I digress. We now know who that anonymous donor is.
We know who donated the $130 million to pay members of the military during the shutdown for their service. According to the New York Times, billionaire Timothy Mellon is the financial backer. President Trump announced the donation on Thursday. He then praised the then anonymous donor as, quote, a patriot and friend, saying they didn't want to give the person publicity or reveal their identity.
Timothy Mellon, whose net worth is roughly around $14 billion. Who is Timothy Mellon? Well, he's an investor, a banker, other ventures or whatever, but he's also the grandson of Andrew Mellon. Who the hell is Andrew Mellon? Well, Andrew Mellon was also a banker, a investor, and a multimillionaire in his day. He was also Secretary of the Treasury from 1921 until 1932. What happened between 1921 and 1932? The Roaring Twenties and the Great Depression. His financial ideas, being Secretary of the Treasury, caused, along with the Smoot-Hawley tariffs and a lot of other stuff, the Great Depression. It caused the Roaring Twenties, but the aftermath of the Roaring Twenties was the Great Depression that lasted until World War II, lasted about 10 years or so. How did Andrew Mellon cause the Great Depression? My children hate when I say this, but I'm glad you asked that question. Now, before we get started, I just want to say that Andrew Mellon was Secretary of the Treasury under Calvin Coolidge. He's the guy with the darker hat. Calvin Coolidge was president in the 1920s. Herbert Hoover took over in 1929, and the stock market crashed in 29, and Herbert Hoover had to deal with it from 29 to 32. So Andrew Mellon was Secretary of Treasury under both, but he destroyed the economy in the 1920s under Coolidge, but Hoover got all the blame or credit or whatever. The first thing that Andrew Mellon did was he cut taxes for the wealthy and corporations. Let's just marinate on that for a second. He believed that reducing taxes for individuals and businesses would stimulate investment and economic growth. So the Revenue Acts from 21, 24, and 26 lowered the top marginal income tax rate from 70% to 24%. Rich people were paying 74% in taxes. He cut it down to 24%. That brought on an economic boom during the Roaring Twenties. That's the earlier form of trickle-down economics that Reagan tried to do in the 1980s that did not work, or Bill Clinton had to fix. And that's the same thing as the Trump's tax cuts in his first administration that he just extended in the second. Lower income taxes for the wealthy, hoping that it trickled down to the poor, and it's not. Let's keep going. He also wanted to reduce the national debt. Mellon prioritized reducing the national debt from $25 billion in 1920 to $16 billion in 1929. Federal spending was cut during economic contraction, limiting government stimulus when the economy started slowing. If you don't learn from the past, you are doomed to repeat it. That's what Trump is doing now. They're cutting budget when inflation is high and the American people need the stimulus. When stuff started going bad, he supported a laissez-faire economic policy. Mellon favored minimal government regulation in financial markets, which included banks and Wall Street. Deregulation encouraged speculation on the stock market during the 1920s, inflating financial bubbles. When the Wall Street crash occurred in 1929, no policy measures or stimulus programs were put in place. Are we not repeating this? Is that not what's happening right now? If you deregulate and let business just do what business do, business is only going to look out for them because they're capitalists. They're only going to look out for themselves. To hell with everybody else until they need a bailout. And here we go. Insufficient response to the onset of the Great Depression. You can pause and read it. What that was a let them eat cake kind of approach. Because he was so rich, the stock market impact didn't have a big impact on him or none of his rich buddies. So he just gave a laissez-faire attitude to it. He'd let them eat cake. They'll be all right. Is that not what's going on right now? We had the greatest economic depression since the 1930s in the early 2000s under George W. Bush. Barack Obama had to come and fix it. We went through something similar under Trump. Biden tried to fix it. We're going through that same problem now. And then Andrew Mellon's grandson just gave the government $130 million. Why? Que bono. Who benefits? What is he getting in return for that $130 million? And why trust a family, even though they got money, even though they're smart in the financial sector as far as doing what they do for them? Why should you trust a man whose family has a history of screwing the American people for their benefit? What do you think?